a move, shot, save, open net, score! He's done it again! Alex Tanguay! And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
Oh my goodness.
Is that Paul Correa?
Yes, it is.
Correa, the fans want one. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Correa!
I have goosebumps.
Off the tie-up, it comes back to the point. Rafalski, the shot, knocked down in front, scrambled in center, another shot, the horn sounds and the Penguins have won the Stanley Cup. Another shot, safe, rebound, score! The Stanley Cup, Martinez!
Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So today I wanted to talk about the Stanley Cup. Oh, I'm over here. So today I want to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals, and being a hockey fan, I feel like this is the best time to do it with the playoffs happening right now. So I'm going to go from 1999 up until this past year with Vegas and Washington. Why 1999? Other than that, I don't really remember too much prior to it. Bits and pieces, I remember Peter Nedved scoring in the fourth overtime against Washington. I remember a Paul Correa goal against the Phoenix Coyotes. I really don't have a whole lot of memories. 1999 is really when I kind of started remembering, details about games and everything. And I figured that's probably the best place to start. So basically, I'm going to talk about just the final, not the playoff run itself. I'm going to try my absolute best not to get sidetracked. We all know I can get sidetracked pretty easily, so we'll see how it goes. We're going to start off in 1999 with the Dallas Stars taking on the Buffalo Sabres. So this series is special to me. This is one of the few memories I have, one of the last few memories I have with my dad watching hockey growing up. So this series has definitely kind of, really stuck out to me. Me and him were a big Brett Hull fan. I love that he wore number 22. It's a reason that I was wearing actually number 22 for quite a little while there when I was younger, along with number 6. Now, the controversy that ended this series and won the Dallas Stars the Stanley Cup has not been forgotten by Buffalo Sabre fans to this day. Buffalo fans still dislike the Dallas Stars for this particular reason. I think it was a good goal. I know earlier in the season, midway through the season, they had changed the rules, so technically it was a good goal, although not everyone, I guess, got the memo or something. I don't know what it was, but to me, they are the Stanley Cup champions. They did an absolutely fantastic job. Like I said, this one really sticks out to me because of, the last, really, really vivid memory I have watching hockey with my dad was this series. So yeah, Brett Hull and the Dallas Stars made me very happy that year. This 1999 Stanley Cup Finals gets a thumbs up for me. Moving on to the year 2000s, the Dallas Stars made it back to the Stanley Cup Final, and they were taking on the New Jersey Devils. And I'm not a big New Jersey Devils fan, and this is really kind of when it started for me. I was really hoping for a repeat for Dallas. I would have loved to see Dallas. Like I said, watching New Jersey games, being a Penguins fan, I found them just really, really boring to watch, and I didn't care to watch them play. With the Devils, though, I really liked Peter Sikora, and I did quite like Scott Niedermayer. I hated Marty Brodeur, and I really, really, really disliked Scott Stevens, so this series was very easy for me to cheer for Dallas because I had a bunch of players I obviously really liked. Now, the Stars were not able to beat the New Jersey Devils, and this is, like I said, really when I kind of started hating the New Jersey Devils, which would go on for the next 18 years pretty much. Moving on to 2001, and this series, this final, has probably impacted my life the most. So in the spring of 2001, we lost our dad. It was about April, right around when the playoffs were starting, so I, kind of escaped into hockey, and hockey kind of helped kind of get over that a little bit. Me and my dad, obviously, he put me in hockey when I was a kid, and, growing up watching hockey with him, a lot of great memories. But that was no more. 2001 rolls around, he's no longer with us, and by the time we make it to the Stanley Cup Final, it was the New Jersey Devils taking on the Colorado Avalanche. I really was cheering for Colorado. At this point, I'm hating New Jersey. They're eliminating teams that I'm liking. Yeah, I'm just not a New Jersey fan whatsoever. And I was really pulling for Ray Bourque. I really wanted to see him get the Stanley Cup. I know my dad would have absolutely loved to see that happen. And the day of Colorado actually winning the Stanley Cup, that was the day that we actually went and said goodbye to our dad for the final time. Spreading his ashes and all that and all that fun stuff. So yeah, after we did that, we came back and I just escaped into hockey and watched the Stanley Cup being won by the Avalanche. It was very emotional. One of the very few times I've actually cried watching hockey. It was very surreal, knowing that my dad was no longer there watching it with me. But I was so freaking happy when Colorado won. It just felt right for that year, that day. Man, it was such a surreal feeling that I'll never forget. So the 2001 finals stick out probably the most to me in that sense. So 2001 definitely gets a thumbs up. 2000, I forgot to say, thumbs down for that one. All right, moving on. 2002. The 2002 final, I remember not really knowing who to cheer for. I was not really a Detroit fan, but I wasn't really a Carolina fan either at that point. I think the right team won here. This Detroit team from 2002 was probably maybe the best team ever assembled in the NHL, in my opinion. Or at least one of them. It has to be up there. I mean, you have Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov, Luc Robitaille, Brett Hull. I mean, Pavel Datsyuk's a rookie at this point. I mean, it was just Brendan Shanahan. The list goes on and on. It just, I'm forgetting players. Nick Lidstrom. I almost forgot him. Like, this was a Hall of Fame team. Absolutely unbelievable. So the right team, I think, did win. Carolina would eventually get their win back down the road, but we'll get there in a bit. So for 2002, I think the right team won. Having said that, the one player that really stuck out to me in this particular series was Ron Francis. I would have loved to seen him get the Stanley Cup again. He won it quite a while ago with Pittsburgh at this point. It had been a long time since he won. So I was really kind of hoping to see him win, but on the same token, Luc Robitaille getting his Stanley Cup with the Red Wings, very fitting, and I think just an awesome end to the series. That Detroit team, though, was scary good. Having said that, do I give 2002 a thumbs up or a thumbs down? To be completely honest, it's pretty much neutral. Like I said, I think the right team won, but I really didn't have much interest in this particular series. It was a quick one, I think, 5 games, so... Alright, so 2003 rolls around, and I am, fully committed to watching the Mighty Ducks and Paul Kariya. I think it's time for him to win the Stanley Cup. And this year, the New Jersey Devils, again, I'm fully on board with hating them. This is probably the most my hatred for them would ever get. Watching Scott Niedermayer, Scott Stevens absolutely obliterate Paul Kariya. I was livid. I was so upset. Kind of cool that it led to probably my favorite moment in hockey history, when Paul Kariya scored that slap shot goal against Marty Brodeur, a few shifts later. How he was able to come back. In today's day and age, he wouldn't have. He would have been done for good. So that was really kind of a moment that shouldn't have happened, to be completely honest, because he shouldn't have been playing. But, man, what a moment that was. Unfortunately, they would lose in Game 7. The Devils played fantastic. One other thing that I really remember from that series was that blooper goal that Marty Brodeur let in, where I can't remember if it was Ozilage who shot it, and he went to go and grab it with his stick, and I don't know how he did it. But yeah, I'll link that goal because that is one of the best Stanley Cup final goals I've ever seen. 2003 gets a thumbs down for me simply because Paul Kariya didn't get his Stanley Cup. He never would, which is a huge travesty to me, being a huge Paul Kariya fan. So 2004 rolls around. Me and my mom and our family has left Saskatchewan. We're actually living here in in Okotoks, just a little bit outside of Calgary. And the Flames make it to the Stanley Cup final. And this city is absolutely crazy for it. It was quite an experience living in Calgary around this time. The Red Mile going, and it was just, it was insane. I've never seen anything like that to this day. could have had something like that this year. Unfortunately for Calgary, it didn't really work out, but oh well. Now, on the other hand, Tampa Bay coming into Calgary and pretty much destroying them, to be completely honest. I know it was a pretty close series. I went to the 7 games, and it was, a really back and forth series, but honestly, it just felt like Tampa was the team that was going to win, especially after Game 6, and that goal was, not counted pretty much for the Flames. That goal is still talked about in the city however many years later. It's absolutely unbelievable. And how much if Calgary would have scored that goal, they would have won the Stanley Cup, which is absolutely true. They would have. Unfortunately for them, it didn't count. It didn't win them the cup, but they had a whole other chance in Game 7 to win the Stanley Cup, and they didn't. So why people get so butthurt, I understand, but at the same time, I don't. You had the chance in Game 7, and you guys couldn't pull it off, so you really only have yourself to blame at that point. One player that really stuck out to me in this series was Ruslan Fedotenko, who I believe got the cup-winning goal in that series. And I became a Ruslan Fedotenko fan going forward, whether he played for the Islanders, and I really liked him in Pittsburgh. I believe he played for the Wild at the end of his career. I could be wrong, but yeah. I really liked Ruslan Fedotenko, and this series was the start of that. But for how I felt about it, 2004, the final, it was kind of indifferent for me, so it doesn't really get a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It is what it was. It had 2 teams I really wasn't a big fan of either, so like I said, kind of indifferent for me at this point. Alright, so 2005 rolls around and no one wins the Stanley Cup. There's a lockout and we're all losers, so big thumbs down for that one. This one was a fun one. 2006, I was super excited. The lockout was over. I haven't seen hockey in a year. I'm just ready to go, and I was watching probably as much hockey that particular season that I ever have in one particular year. Man, from the whole season, it was just so much fun watching the shootout being introduced, Jussi Jokinen coming onto the scene and becoming one of my favorite players. Yeah, it was a fun year. Crosby and Ovechkin were both here as well, and like I said, absolutely fantastic year for me. The Stanley Cup Final rolls around, and it's the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Edmonton Oilers. And surprisingly, here in Calgary, a lot of people wanted the Oilers to win. I was quite surprised by that then. I'm not now. I get, people just want to see the Canadian team win, so I understand it now. But at the time, I was really shocked that, there's quite a few people here in Calgary that wanted the Oilers to win. I was not one of them. I was fully on board Carolina. The run that they went on, the atmosphere in the RBC Center, RBC Arena, I can't remember what it was called back then. Absolutely electric. I really don't remember seeing anything like that. It was pretty awesome. This series has one player that really, really stuck out to me, and I became a huge, huge fan of him. Jussi Markkanen for the Edmonton Oilers. After Game 1, when Dwayne Rolison went down and the debacle with Ty Conklin, Jussi Markkanen came in and almost stole the Oilers a cup, which would have been pretty cool looking back on it now. But I'm glad Carolina won. And then when Carolina actually ended up beating the Oilers in Game 7, it was quite a cool moment. One that really sticks out to me, I was at my friend Mike's house. There's a bunch of us over, friends from school and everything. And we were all cheering against the Oilers, and watching them lose was such an amazing feeling. But yeah, watching Carolina actually go on that run was something that I will never forget, and it was absolutely unbelievable. Something I would kind of almost experience again in 2009, when they went on their incredible run, making it all the way to the conference final before being swept by Pittsburgh. But we'll get there in a bit. And watching Carolina on this run this year, making it to the second round again, I'm really, really pulling for Carolina to make it all the way to the final coming out of the East, but we'll see. 2007 comes around, and it's the Senators versus the Ducks. I'm really cheering for the Ducks. I don't really like the Senators a whole lot, which is so weird. I'm not a person that cheers for a team just because they're simply from the country that I happen to live in. People are like, oh, you have to cheer for the Senators, or you have to cheer for Vancouver just because they're Canada's team. It's BS. I really don't care. If I lived in Ottawa, it might be different, or whatever city. It didn't really help with Calgary in 2004 for me, so it doesn't really matter. If I don't like the team, I don't like the team. I don't really care where it is. Having said that, watching the Ducks go on their run, you felt like they were getting close the last couple seasons, and no more Paul Kariya, but Timo Solani is back with them. Scott Niedermayer is there, Jay Shigeru's in net still, and they play absolutely out of this world. And they pretty much just destroy the Senators. So 2007 gets a big thumbs up for me, and the player that I was most excited to see was Scott Niedermayer, because as much as I hated the Devils, I really liked Scott Niedermayer, and I really didn't want him on the on the Devils. And when he moved to the Mighty Ducks, I was super happy, because now I could actually really kind of cheer for him. And I definitely want to get a Mighty Ducks Scott Niedermayer jersey. Even though they won this as the Ducks, they were no longer Mighty, which was unfortunate, but it was necessary. And obviously, Chris Pronger had a huge role helping the Ducks win. And yeah, it was a fun final, and they pretty much made short work of Ottawa in the final. Ottawa went on a pretty incredible run to get to the final. They just ran out of gas, I thought. Danny Heatley, Spezza, and Alfredsson, that was one of the best lines in hockey at the time. Yeah, they just couldn't get it done. So 2007 gets a big thumbs up for me. Alright, so 2008 would come around, and the Pittsburgh Penguins would end up playing the Detroit Red Wings in the Stanley Cup Final. And this was a super fun series. I was a huge Pittsburgh fan at this point. They were still my favorite team, and they would be my favorite team for another year after this as well. At that point, Pittsburgh was pretty much my favorite team. With the exception of 2001, I was going to say I would probably be considered an Avalanche fan, but Pittsburgh was always pretty much my favorite team. 2007, they had made the playoffs for the first time in what felt like an eternity. They ended up getting beat by the Senators. But this year, it was Pittsburgh going on and making it to the second round, made it to the third round, and eventually made it to the Stanley Cup Final. And that whole playoff run by Pittsburgh was probably one of the most I've ever cheered for a team as well. I was just so excited, and then they ran into the Detroit Red Wings, and it all ended. Watching Marian Hossa and Pascal Dupuis come over from the Thrashers, it just gave the Penguins that extra boost. And if Pittsburgh had won, I think Marian Hossa probably would have got the Conn Smythe. I thought he was the best player for Pittsburgh, and just didn't happen. Hossa would eventually leave to Pittsburgh and go to Detroit. But 2008, this one's weird because it would get a thumbs up for me simply just because of the run that Pittsburgh had and how much fun I had watching it. But the end result was not a fun for me, so it will get a thumbs down for this one. The next day, after Pittsburgh lost, I proudly wore my Pittsburgh jersey to school and got made fun of quite a bit, but oh well. Alright. Alright guys, so that wraps up the first part of this video. I'm going to cut it off here before it gets way too long. I don't want to make, an hour-long video here. So we're going to kind of continue. I'll release the other part of this list tomorrow. But in the meantime, guys, let me know what you guys think of these finals, which ones you guys really liked, which ones were your favorite finals. And we'll continue again tomorrow with the rest of them here. But thanks again for watching, guys. Really appreciate it, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.